So my anticipation of the television show Loki going into it was pretty actually high. I've enjoyed the other two MCU shows, WandaVision and Falcon and the Winter Soldier, even though they have tons of problems, and I don't like Falcon and the Winter Soldier as much as I did on that first initial watch. But the trailers were looking promising. I loved the premise. So what did I think about it? Well, let's talk about it.
I'm 10 steps ahead of you. You're not big on trust, are you?
So my thoughts on Loki is that it's actually really great until it's not that great. But before we get into this video any further, I will be talking full on spoilers for the series Loki. So if you want to watch it, go watch it. All 6 episodes are out now, and then come back to this video. You've been warned. Alrighty, there's a lot of good stuff, great stuff, in fact, in Loki. In fact, I would say this is one of the best MCU things I've seen in years. It's fun, it's quirky, it's imaginative, it has this great 50s sci-fi tone that doesn't take itself too seriously. It's great, but also there's a lot of really not so good moments, especially in that last episode, which I'm going to talk about all the episodes, but I really want to talk about episode 6. Now, I don't know anybody's consensus on how they think about episode 6. I'm recording this video right after coming out of episode 6, so I've not seen any other reviews, so I don't know if this is unpopular opinion. I thought episode 6 was kind of bad, and which is really disappointing because episode 1 through 5 were some of the best MCU things in years. Episode 6 is one of the worst MCU things in years. The episode is focused on, instead of being a great payoff, it's just a lot of exposition, which there's nothing wrong with exposition, but doing that at the very end of the show just doesn't really work for me. Also, the show doesn't really have much going on for it. Apparently, there might be a season 2, but that's the thing. The season finale isn't worrying about capping off the show, it's worrying about capping off a season, which the other two MCU shows capped off the entire show, and they had really pretty good, entertaining finales. This finale didn't have anything worth merit. There was a lot of talking, and the dialogue in the show, for the most part, has been excellent, but this definitely has the worst amount of dialogue. The writing just isn't as sharp or witty or smart as it was in the previous episodes, and this episode just doesn't feel right. I was kind of bored throughout it, and not because there wasn't a lot of action. The show is actually not very good at action, so the action sequences aren't the best in the show. It's the characters and the dialogue and the quirky different worlds that Loki and female Loki go into. It's a really fun idea, but the last episode just doesn't work for me. It just feels flat. I will say the ending of the episode gives some mystery on either what they're going to do for future MCU movies or even a second Loki season. I would love to see a second season on Loki if the finale got me more excited than they did. The finale just didn't work for me personally, and it just fell flat. And while we're on things that weren't really that well executed, the relationship between Loki and Sylvie just didn't really work for me, and their kiss at the end of the show just felt so forced. There's something about the relationship that wasn't necessarily bad, but it's not that the relationship is bad, but when they try to do a romance side, it doesn't work. It's kind of cringe and just doesn't really flow right. I don't know, maybe I'm just a madman talking, but it just didn't really work for me. The writing also in those sequences felt worse than the rest of the writing of the show, and it just didn't really work for me. Also, the show has a bit of a weird pace. There's 6 episodes, and the first 3 episodes, really, there's a bit of payoff. In episode 6, there's no payoff. So it's a very weird flowed show, and maybe the pace could have worked if episode 6 would have paid it off like it should have. Also, for the most part, the visual effects in the show are like movie quality, but there's 1 or 2 times where the CGI is a bit noticeable. But overall, I loved it. So let's talk about what I loved about the show. First off, the casting. Tom Hiddleston is once again great. as Loki, and it's fun to actually see him play, at least for the first 2 episodes, that is, evil Loki. Because if you guys don't know, this is not Loki coming back from the dead in the end of Infinity War. This is the Loki from Avengers Endgame, where the Avengers go back in time. Loki steals the Tesseract and vanishes. That's what this Loki is, and the show begins with a little recap for that. So just a bit of confusion, but it's fun to see him play kind of this evil Loki, and his performance is great until in episode 6. Episode 6, his performance just doesn't feel that great. It just doesn't really work. And also, Sophia, evil Loki, or girl Loki, whatever she's being called, is actually really good. I thought at first when they revealed her in episode 2 that she was just going to be this evil villain, and at the end she kills the main time guy, so maybe she is the villain of the show. There's not really a villain of the show, which, to be honest, I like. Not everything is black and white in the show. The TVA isn't really the villain. Lokis aren't really the villain. Not everything is black and white, and they actually treat it like a real world situation, which I like. But Sophia was pretty good, and her relationship with Loki, when it's not a sexual relationship, was actually really good. I also really enjoyed episode 3. I know a lot of people didn't really like episode 3 and thought it just kind of went off the rails, but I really enjoyed episode 3. Yes, it's a lot of just kind of nothing's really happening. It's just kind of setting up the characters, but I didn't mind that. There was good dialogue, and that's actually probably the best episode where you can feel there's some sexual connection between these two characters, and it doesn't feel, well, cringy. But I really enjoyed it. Oh, Wilson is also just an extremely fun character, and I really enjoyed him seen in the MCU as Morbius. And him and Loki's relationship throughout the show was actually really good. It's you know what's gonna happen. You know they're gonna not be friends, and then by the end of the show, be friends. And then by the end of the episode 5, where Loki gives him the hug and says, "Hey, his best friend," I'm not gonna lie, it got me kind of teared up. It was a really well done moment. I really enjoyed Owen Wilson here. Except in episode 6, his performance felt just weird. All the performances that were good throughout the show just weren't good in episode 6. I don't know what it was, but I really enjoyed his character, and I enjoyed his obsession with jet skis. I thought that was a pretty fun concept and idea. Probably my favorite episode of the show has to be episode 5, where they go into this different realm after you get ruined. It's a cool idea, and I like seeing the other Lokis. Future Loki, Kid Loki, and then Alligator Loki. It was pretty fun, and that's probably the most ridiculous, quirky episode, but I just really enjoyed it. Also, the music in the show is just bloody awesome. It's a great soundtrack. It fits the character of Loki. It has this sci-fi 70s feel to it. The show is also really well shot. There's some great cinematography and just great sequences. I will say the action is not very good. It's very clunky, hyper edited. I would say probably the best action has to be, even though I did not like this episode 6. There's a fight between Loki and Sophia in that episode, and it was probably the best action in the show. But the action is not very good. You don't really come to the action. You come for the characters. And also, I really liked Loki's arc throughout the show. It felt believable that he started the show as, of course, evil Loki, and learned to appreciate and be trusted and learn to trust people. It was a pretty fun idea that was just completely regarded, that Sophia all of a sudden just doesn't trust Loki, that he wants the throne. It felt so out of left field and just did not work for me personally. All the things that these characters have been through and told each other that they trust each other, then all of a sudden, because Loki does not want to kill a guy, that something might terribly happen, she thinks he wants the throne. I understand what the creators were going with, but it just didn't flow well for me personally. Overall, Loki is an extremely fun, entertaining, really well done TV show, with the last episode just not being that good. Not being that good. In terms of finale, it was probably my least favorite of the 3 finales so far, but this is definitely my favorite of the MCU shows so far, and I'm going to give Loki an A-. And in terms of who wants to ask, my thoughts on Falcon the Winter Soldier has gone down. I'll probably give the show probably about a B to a B- now. So yes, this is definitely my favorite of the 3 so far. So those were my thoughts on Loki. What do you think of the show? I'd love to know all your thoughts down in the comment section below. If it's live stream, hit the like button and subscribe and that post notification bell so you guys know when I saw another reviews. You can check out my podcast I do every other Tuesday with a friend of mine. It's called the Movie Podcast. And you guys can check out my Instagram at JonesDaniel77. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you guys next time.